Most Canadians think wealth looks like a massive house in Oakville or a brand new luxury SUV sitting in the driveway. But that image is a trap. Real wealth isn't square footage, and it isn't horsepower. Real wealth is a measure of two things: your time and your resilience. It's the number of bad days you can survive before the whole thing comes crashing down. Today, we are breaking down what life actually looks like at 5 distinct Canadian net worth levels in 2026. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why the person who feels the richest is almost never the one with the biggest mortgage. Let's start at the bottom. Level 1, a net worth anywhere from negative numbers up to $10,000. Welcome to the survival zone. At this level, life runs on something psychologists call the scarcity brain. When money is this tight, your mind physically narrows. You lose the ability to plan for next year because every ounce of mental energy is spent surviving next Tuesday. Every decision becomes a threat calculation. In the GTA or the Lower Mainland, where rent can swallow half of your take-home pay before you've bought a single grocery, that pressure never switches off. You walk into Loblaws and you're doing math in the cereal aisle. You stand at the pump asking yourself whether you can afford the premium gas today, or whether it's regular again, or whether you put in just $20 and hope it gets you to Friday. And the numbers are brutal. In 2026, the average Canadian family of 4 is expected to spend over $17,500 just to eat, almost $1,000 more than the year before. Groceries now cost roughly 27% more than they did 5 years ago, and 1 in 4 Canadian households is now considered food insecure. At this level, a flat tire isn't an inconvenience. It's a genuine crisis that goes straight onto a credit card at 19.99% interest. Understand this clearly. If you are here, you are not lazy, and you are not bad with money. You are running a marathon with a backpack full of bricks, and almost nobody around you can see the weight. Now something changes. Level 2. The $20,000 milestone. I call this the buffer zone. And $20,000 is the quiet magic number in Canada. Not because it's a lot of money, because it isn't. It's because it's the exact point where you stop being a survivor and start becoming a builder. Picture it. Your furnace dies in the middle of January, when it's minus 30 outside. At level 1, that's a catastrophe. At level 2, you sigh. You call the repair company, and you book the appointment. When the dentist looks at the x-ray and says you need $3,000 of work, it stings, but it doesn't end you. That, right there, is the whole game. $20,000 buys you the single most valuable thing money can offer at this stage: the ability to absorb a punch and stay on your feet. The scarcity brain finally goes quiet, and in that silence, for the first time in years, you can lift your head and think past the end of the month. This is where compounding stops being a word in a textbook and starts becoming your actual future. Level 3, $500,000. On paper, you have officially made it. And here is a fact that surprises almost everyone. The median household net worth in Canada is now sitting right around $519,700. So if this is you, then statistically, you are the most typical Canadian household there is. But this level has another name: the real estate trap. For most families, that $500,000 is not cash. It is paper wealth, locked inside the walls of a semi-detached home, and you cannot spend a hallway. You cannot eat a finished basement. This is where the strangest feeling in all of Canadian personal finance shows up. We call it wealthy but broke. You are, on paper, a millionaire, and yet you still flinch when the hydro bill lands in January. You still feel your property taxes as a real, physical weight every single month. Your net worth went up because your neighborhood got expensive, but your checking account never got the memo. And here's the danger. With the household debt-to-income ratio in Canada now sitting near 179.6%, an awful lot of that shiny paper wealth is parked right next to an enormous mortgage and a HELOC that's quietly creeping upward. You look rich, you feel stretched. And both things are true at once. Level 4, $1 million to $5 million. This is the freedom zone, and it is the level where the entire math of your life quietly flips over. Up until this point, the story was always the same. Your salary paid for your life, you traded hours for dollars, and the dollars ran out. But somewhere inside this range, something remarkable happens. Your investments, your RRSP, compounding silently in the background, your TFSA, growing completely and permanently tax-free, start to earn more in a good year than you earn at your actual job. Read that again. Your money goes to work in the morning, and it works harder than you ever could. And that single fact changes everything about how you move through the world. This is the level where you can walk away from a toxic manager without your stomach dropping through the floor, where you can quietly help your kid with the deposit on their first home, where you stop performing wealth for other people and simply start living it. This is the beginning of what I call quiet wealth. No badge, no flash, no caption, just options. And options, it turns out, are the single most expensive and most valuable thing a person can ever buy. Level 5, $10 million and beyond. The legacy zone. And to understand just how rare this air is, you need some perspective. In 2026, total Canadian household wealth climbed to roughly $18.6 trillion, but it is nowhere near evenly shared. The wealthiest 20% of households hold about 65.5% of everything, averaging around $3.5 million each. $10 million puts you comfortably above even that top tier. At this level, money stops being a factor in any single decision you make. Nobody at 10 million is standing at the pump agonizing over premium gas. So what are you actually buying now? It isn't stuff. What real wealth purchases at this level is anonymity and time and influence. The freedom to fund a cause you believe in, to quietly back a family member's business, to set up your grandchildren before they are even born. This is the point where money finally stops being about you and starts being about everyone who comes after you. It becomes a multi-generational tool, not a personal scoreboard. But here is the twist that almost nobody talks about. You would think that level 4, genuine, life-changing, walk away from anything freedom, would feel like the finish line, and yet, so often, it doesn't. Because the person sitting at level 4 is not comparing themselves upward to some distant billionaire. They are comparing sideways to the luxury influencer at level 5, the one posting the yacht, the private jet, the villa in the south of France. And suddenly a genuine millionaire feels squeezed, feels behind, feels absurdly poor. This is the great modern trap, and it is the whole reason this video exists. Comparison does not shrink when your net worth grows. It scales up right alongside it. The freedom is completely real, but that gnawing feeling of not enough will follow you all the way up the ladder, floor after floor, unless you make the deliberate decision to leave it behind on the ground. So here is the truth, after all 5 levels. Net worth in Canada is not a trophy, it is a tool. It was never meant to be shown off. It was meant to buy back your time and your peace of mind. And the real number that decides whether you feel wealthy has nothing to do with the CRA and nothing to do with the balance printed on your statement. It's the gap. The gap between what you actually have and what you feel you need in order to prove something to the world. Close that gap, and you can feel genuinely wealthy at $20,000. Ignore it, and you will feel poor at 10 million. So before you go chasing the next level, ask yourself the only question that actually matters. Are you building real wealth, or are you just quietly funding an image? Because one of those two things will eventually set you free, and the other one never, ever ends. If you learned something, like and hit subscribe. See you in the next one.